Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the first Talent Bites event, a new series powered by Esade Careers and the Blacks in Business and Allies Club in collaboration with Kobi Ampoma, who will moderate these events. Kobi works in talent acquisition and is the owner of JNL Recruitment. Today, our guest speaker is Lorraine Deschamps, EMEA Head of Corporate Citizenship at Fiserv, a fintech regularly ranked one of the most admired companies in the world by Fortune. Thank you all for being here, and please feel free to ask questions in the chat during our session. I will now give the floor over to Kobi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. And for the viewers listening today, thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, it's a privilege for myself to have Lorraine present today. Like Alexandra mentioned, Lorraine is head of corporate citizenship at Fiserv. Lorraine happened to work with my partner in crime, which is my wife. And Naomi and I were discussing, how can we give back to different students who are interested in navigating their careers in different corporations. And when we put together our list of speakers that we thought would be interesting for us to engage with, Lorraine was anonymously voted in as our first guest speaker. So I'm very delighted that she's here. We will get to know Lorraine a little bit. She would navigate us through her career and also share some insights when it comes to navigating your career within the corporate world. Plus, there's a few things that's also very near and dear to her heart, and I'll hope to touch base on that as well. So, Lorraine, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Kobi. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So my first question to you, Lorraine, is obviously, if you could share a little bit about yourself, who you are. Are you a mother? Are you a partner? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thanks, Kobi. So yes, I'm all of those. I'm a mother, I'm a partner, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, right? I was born in Kenya, in East Africa, many years ago. Basically grew up in two different countries. I was premature, so I was supposed to be born in Uganda, but I ended up being born in Kenya, but moved back and forth. And then when I was 11 years old, my parents sat us down, my sister and myself, in the kitchen and said, we're going to emigrate. Where do you want to go, Brazil or Canada? And myself, my mum and my sister just said, oh no, Canada's too cold. So honestly, that's what we did. So we went and we upped sticks and we relocated to Brazil. And we were told by our dad, get used to a different lifestyle. You have to learn a new language, all sorts of things. So obviously, young people, that's what they think. The world is their oyster. So I was like up for it. Boy, was that a culture shock, right? But in Brazil, in Africa, you don't see anyone who is white doing menial jobs. But you go to Brazil, suddenly there's people out there, poor people, rich people of all colors. So I spent my formative years, I would say, in Brazil. And then, I went to an English school and had to learn the lessons in Portuguese as well. And then when I was old enough, I came to England to carry on my studies, college, university. So I have the privilege, if you like, of being brought up in 3 different continents. I'm really lucky. I count that as a blessing. So that's what I did. And then being a little rebel, when it was time to go home, I didn't. So I went traveling around the world instead, met the sister of my future husband, who became a good friend, and then got married to a guy from the West Indies, black guy, who's mixed heritage. And so I still have that married name, even though I'm divorced, but my children bear the family name Deschamps. And basically, that's how I was a wife. I'm remarried now, another wife, but mother to 2 gorgeous children, Jelani and Shusha. Jelani is my boy. He has a Swahili name because of my Kenyan heritage. And Shusha, my daughter, has a Brazilian name because of the time I spent in Brazil. So there you go. There's a little bit about me.
Wow, this is incredible. And to be honest, I didn't know half of the story. So I'm very, very insightful in terms of, how you grew up and sharing some personal stories with us as well. We are here to learn about, how you navigated, let's say, your career, also in a corporate life. And one of the things that I would like to ask you is, if you look back at your younger self, right? What would you wish that you've known when you were beginning your career?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because actually I would almost flip it in a way. Sorry, Kobi, but
No
I
worries.
would almost flip it and say sometimes as we grow older in our careers, we forget all the good stuff that we did when we were young. So one of the things I need to remind myself today about what I did when I was younger was not having the fear, right? So when you're young, you're fearless. So you go and you tread in places where others would basically, think twice because they're wiser. So try not to lose that, because that is beautiful, what young people have. So hold on to that. But what would I do? What would I have, told myself as a younger person is, one of the things I did do is I threw myself wholeheartedly into what I was trying to do and assumed that everyone was also motivated the same way. Big mistake. I learned very fast that, actually that doesn't work. And if you go in with too much energy and without communicating and taking people with you, you're doomed to go at a lot slower a pace than you actually thought you could. So that would be one of the things I would say is, sometimes youth, because you don't see a lot of barriers, or you think, gosh, it's so crystal clear to me, you assume that everyone is with you, and that isn't the case. And I found that out very, very quickly, actually.
So one of the questions that we have here is, and I think you answered it already, but if you look back, is there anything that you say, hey, this is something that I would consider a failure, and what I learned from that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Like I said, I'll tell you what I did, actually. It's a bit crazy, but this is what I mean about the courage, right? So
Yeah.
I said to you already, I didn't go home. I decided to travel the world. And my ex-husband was from the Caribbean. So what happened is, because I knew some friends from the Caribbean, I decided I'm not going home to Brazil. I'm going to go to the Caribbean. Right. And I'm going to visit my boyfriend that I'd met at university, who was living out there. So I basically landed in the Caribbean and fell in love with the island. My degree was in economics, and this island had been devastated by 3 hurricanes. So I thought, there's got to be something I can do here. I want to stay here. I want to get involved. I want to put this island back on its feet. So I basically badgered his cousin, who happened to have some contacts at the Prime Minister's office, and said, please put me in touch with somebody in the government that I can talk to, because surely my degree can be helpful. So she did do that. And so eventually I got to the head of the Economic Development Unit. It's a very small island, so that's why you can do that, right? Okay. Let's put this in context, not like a big country or something. So I got an appointment with Dr. Watty of the Economic Development Unit, and I basically said to him, hey, I've got a degree, you've got a devastated island. What, surely there's something I can do here. That's what I mean about the bravery, right? Mm-hmm. And he thought, blimey, who is this person? And so he said, well, okay, I'll think about it. So I then said, well, can you think about it quickly, please? Because I'm only here for another week or so, and then I'm leaving the island, or 2 weeks. So he said, okay. And what happened then is, literally on the day when I was leaving the island, he called me up and said, I think you should come in on Monday. I was leaving on a Friday, and I'll talk to you about, what I'm thinking. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm leaving the island today, but I'm only going to Antigua, which was the neighboring island. So if you want to talk, maybe you bring me back and we do something. Yeah. I ended up getting a year's contract to work in Dominica, which was the island. Mm-hmm. Fantastic job, doing something that I really cared about. But my failure was, I assumed that everybody in the government would be as fired up as I was to actually make a difference. And of course, they were resentful. Who is this person that's just come in? She's like green behind the ears. She doesn't really know what she's talking about. And by the way, she works like a hurricane. And in the West Indies, everybody's like, a lot more relaxed, shall we say. So I really fell flat on my very first job. I mean, it was great to land the job, but learning a very hard lesson that actually, you come in, you think it's great, you think you're doing well because you've done something that seems fantastic to you, but you're only as good as the people that you take along with you.
Wow. That's great that you share that insight. I think if you look at from a summary perspective, is dare to take risk, right? That's what you say. Don't assume that everybody is potentially on your side, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
meant to be the case. But also have, let's say, bravery and go for what you think is a good initiative, is a good thing.
Absolutely, Kobi. You summarized it beautifully. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. So if you look at resources, right,
Yes.
in your environment when you started your career, were there people that supported you, and who were those people?
Yeah, it's very interesting because sometimes people support. It depends on how you're wired, actually. Okay.
Okay.
So for some people, you know, having somebody who's supporting you and telling you you can do it, etc., that works for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's good. I must admit, I had a combination of people, but I had a lot of people who told me what I couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my resource. I'm sorry, because that's the way I'm wired. It's like, tell me I can't do something and I will do it just to prove you wrong. I always had that reputation at school that, I would argue with a brick wall, or I would argue that black was white or white was black or whatever. I just had that thing in me, which was, I don't know whether it's contrary. I think it's because my parents always said to me, be the owner of your own thoughts and your own conclusions. Be an independent thinker. Don't go with the flow just because everyone else is going with the flow. Be a critical thinker.
Okay.
And so I really did take that to heart. So even as a youngster, whenever my parents spoke to me, and on the one hand, they would say, be bold, be brave. And on the other hand, if I spoke up, I was told, don't speak unless you're spoken to. That instilled in me this sense of injustice. So in a way, I developed my own way of thinking, which was, I'm never going to forget what it's like to be 7. I'm never going to forget what it's like to be 9, 11. And I made it a point to consciously think about what it feels like to be in certain, stages in your life. And so, the people that kind of were my resources were people who kind of put me in a box in a way, because I would rail against that and think, no, I'm not in a box, and it would force me to be very clear about what I wanted. So I think, I had more of that, at that stage in my life, but later in life, and as I've moved on, I found that people who are supportive, who believe in you, who get to understand who you are and who counsel you, who give you difficult messages, for example, they are great resources. But even the people who believe in you when you don't believe in.
Oh, I think we lost Lorraine. Are you there, Lorraine?
Hi.
Hi, you're back. We lost you. We lost you. But I think you were saying even the people that, and then we lost you.
I beg your pardon?
In your storyline, you were mentioning that even the people that, and I'm assuming that you said even the people who had maybe not so positive impact were also resources. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And Lorraine, what about mentors? Did you have any mentors? Let's say when you started your career, if you had any, did they play an important part in terms of how you navigated your career?
I think I got mentors later in my career, Kobi.
Okay.
I didn't have them straight away, I have to say. And if you can get a mentor early, bully for you, good for you, because mentors are amazing. I have to tell you, I mean, I didn't really have that many mentors in my younger days, but certainly as I advanced, I did get mentors, and they were absolutely unbelievably helpful. People that believed in you, and sometimes they came from the strangest places. You didn't expect the mentor. Somebody, a lot of my mentors, funnily enough, came from my extracurricular activities rather than in the workplace. Which leads me to another point. One of the things, and I don't know if you're going to ask me a question about this, but I would always say, don't put all your eggs in one basket in your career. Don't actually think that it's only in the workplace that you can advance your career. That is such a huge mistake that I think a lot of us make. It's actually look beyond the workplace, definitely, because they come in all shapes and sizes and from all different places that sometimes you don't even know where they're coming from.
Wow. I think one of the things that I have also done when it comes to mentorship is I always used to have or still have, somebody internally in the company or a few, and somebody externally who you can bounce on different ideas. So I think that's a good way that you also framed it. We have a question from one of the listeners who is indicating, how do you motivate your team and keep up with your passion?
Okay, that's why it's important to really know yourself. So, I mean, you can't motivate somebody else unless you tap into what makes them tick. Before you can tap into what makes someone else tick, you have to know yourself. I would always say that's like a fundamental pillar of emotional intelligence, right? It's that self-awareness. So knowing what makes you tick first is crucial, right? So, I mean, I'll give you a story. It's a very personal story, actually. But my mom made a huge sacrifices in order to have me be educated in the United Kingdom, because I left home from Brazil when I was 16 and I went to England, and I never lived back at home again, right? I mean, I went back, visited my parents. As you know, I was a little rebel and I didn't go home straight away, went to the Caribbean, etc. But actually, I never went home and I never lived at home again, right? And when Mum passed away, it was this year, it'll be 10 years, I suddenly had an epiphany, and it was a horrible one. I thought, oh my goodness, because I was working at a company that I hated. And it was a job that I didn't like. I didn't like the company's morals. I didn't like my job. And I didn't actually even like the people I was working with. And I was thinking, what the heck am I doing, right? And then I thought, gosh, Mum did not work so hard or make so many sacrifices for me to go through life being miserable in what I'm doing, who I'm working with, and this is horrible. So I had to sit down and think, what is it that I really care about? What is it that I'm really passionate about? Because that's what I need to be doing, because that's why Mum made the sacrifices. She did not make the sacrifices for me to go after something where I'm just existing. I'm on the treadmill. I don't actually know what I'm doing, and I have no passion, for it. And so it was only when Mum died that I actually sat back and thought about what I needed. And then I had clarity. Oh, it's about developing others. It's about helping people reach their potential. It's about making a contribution. It's about fighting the injustices that put people in boxes, for example. When I had that, then I realized for anything I do going forwards, it's got to be something I care about, with people that I like and respect, and where I'm really making a contribution, adding value, growing people, whatever. Those three are my rules, right? And the minute I got those right, the rest is easy, because then you have people that you become your authentic self. And when you're your authentic self and everything that you do, and everything that you want to attach to, the passion comes, the self-motivation, intrinsic motivation comes, and you are able to take others, and they actually buy you because you're being you, right? And so when you relate to them, it's on a real basis, and you're trying and understand, what motivates them, but you're actually attracting people to you. And it's just being open, honest, and treating people as if, the way they want to be treated, being very aware about what motivates them. But you need to be your authentic self first.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer to the question. Obviously in my field as a recruiter, when I engage with people, I think one of the things that I would like to come out of the conversation is the passion that they have and the added value that they want to add to an organization. And I think sometimes you don't really think about it, maybe until you're a little older in your journey, as a professional. But I think, nowadays there's no excuse to start earlier. So that's why, this platform is also helping us share this knowledge already with the people who may not know what they're passionate about. So thank you very much for answering that. We have a guy who's called Douglas, and I'm 100% sure he's from Brazil, because he said that Brazil is a great country. So hi, Douglas. He mentioned, has your international and multicultural background helped you throughout your career? And if so, how?
Oh, absolutely, Douglas, because in terms of relating to people, I'm actually quite embarrassed because it feels like you're claiming the limelight, but you're not, because I've got so many different touch points. whenever somebody talks about something, there's normally something that I have an affinity with them, for. And this is really interesting because, when it comes to unconscious bias, it's really funny because one of the unconscious biases is affinity bias, where you attach to people that you have some kind of connection with, and that can influence your decisions. So I'm trying my best not to be swayed that way. But I love being able to talk to someone and say, oh my goodness, I grew up there, or I speak a little bit of that language, or, I can identify with that, or whatever. It really does help, create connections. And, if you're genuinely excited by the similarities that you might have with someone, and let's face it, we're all similar, even in our differences, because we all have, diversity dimensions, as we say, right? So you can always attach to people, you can warm to people, you can have conversations with them in a way that, becomes a personal connection with that person. So yes, absolutely, without doubt. I feel, like I said, I feel privileged to have had that upbringing. You lose something in the sense that you don't feel instantly that you belong somewhere totally. Do you know what I mean? Because it's rare for you to find someone who's got the same kind of upbringing and like yourself, but you can always share a bit of your upbringing with them. So I see the positives in it.
Yeah, thank you, Lorraine, for that. I truly believe that, obviously having a diverse workforce, or how you grew up, always helps, because, in let's say in a corporate environment, there are also a lot of similarities. You need people from a diverse background to work towards a common goal. And
Yes.
now, how you are brought up, if you're fortunate enough to have a lot of international or multicultural interaction, that always also helps.
Of course, yes, it does.
Yeah. And speaking about, let's say talent, you have, managed people,
Yes.
either directly or how to call it, through a matrix organization
Yes.
structure. What is important to you when you're looking at talent? I want you to explain a little bit more out, if you're looking for somebody to be part of your team, or if your organization is looking for, what do you look for, generally speaking?
Mostly, I will look for the fire in their belly and their attitude.
Okay.
Seriously, because skills, knowledge, know-how, connections, that comes.
Yeah.
Of course it comes, but you can't put spirit in somebody. I would call it their spirit, right? Do they have the spirit? Do they have the like I said, fire in their belly? Because it's important that you do that. I'll give you an opportunity. I'll give you an example. So I run a charity. I co-founded a charity.
Correct.
Well, we were recruiting for a CEO of the charity, and all my colleagues, at that point, we'd grown to a point where we realized that for us to go to the next level, we needed to bring on board a new CEO, someone who had basically changed direction from a project-based initiative to almost an entrepreneurial, like, what can we do? What are the possibilities? We need to be much more agile and really crafting new ways of working in an industry, sports industry, that's pretty, set in its way. So a complete fresh way of thinking. And a lot of my colleagues were saying, oh, let's go for the tried and tested. Look, this person's been in government. They know how to work with government. And they've also been in sports, organizations for some time. So they bring a lot of experience. And I wasn't really buying it. And there was one guy that we interviewed, and I have to say, on the day, he wasn't as well presented physically. He was a little slightly disheveled because we found out later his car had broken down en route to the appointment, but never mind, right? Anyway, but he showed up in front of us. And when you care and you want something so much, so badly, that you go beyond your optimum point, where you actually start doing yourself a disservice because you so passionately care about it, you can't even articulate properly, and you start sweating, and and you're just like not having a good day. Well, he was like that on the day. So my colleague said, nah, he didn't do a good job, and he's a CEO, and blah blah blah. And I said, oh, but he's got the passion. I said, he absolutely has got the passion. He cares so deeply that he's gone beyond. So I said, I really think we should give him a chance. I really do think. And I had to really use all my powers of persuasion. And we went with Aaron, right? We went. They said, okay, Lorraine, because in the past I had a good guts. So they said, okay, we'll go with you, you know, what you're saying. So happy to say Aaron came on board. That was back in 2006. 14 years later, we're going from strength to strength to strength to strength. Every year we grow. He's so innovative. He's got such an entrepreneurial, outlook. He's been on Sky TV. He's all over the place. If you Google Sporting Equals CEO Aaron Kang, he's amazing, absolutely amazing. And it was because Aaron had the fire in his belly, too much, but he had it, and that was important.
Wow. I mean, that's an interesting story from a perspective of sometimes you need to fight for, if you believe in somebody.
Yes.
I would say from a recruitment perspective, we look for tangibles, what people bring to the table, but it's also, like you said, the passion, the fire. I believe, I'm very passionate about talent acquisition.
Yes.
And, I'll go beyond my means to read articles, watch YouTube videos about people interviewing. And that is me doing it in my free time.
Oh, well done. Good.
Yeah, because I'm really passionate about it. And I think that if you really like something and you're passionate about it, you go the extra mile and it doesn't feel like work as well. So that's definitely a good advice with our audience listening today.
Good.
You mentioned a little bit, and I would like to touch base on it, after this question around Sporting Equals. But diversity inclusion plays a very important part, and you're very passionate about it as well.
Yes.
Obviously, in your capacity at Fiserv, you head up, the corporate citizenship around that topic. Can you share with us why that topic is so very close to your heart and why you're passionate about that?
Yeah, because like I told you, when I was little, it used to really annoy me at the contradictions, right? Think independently, think innovatively, but don't speak unless you're spoken to. And I was like, seriously, that doesn't make sense. My mum used to tell me silly things like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So I used to say, well, why not? What's the point of having a cake if I can't eat it? You know what I mean? So there was something in me that always thought, I want to hear from people. Do you know what I mean? And I think people should have a voice. So I just don't know what it is. It was always inside of me that, diversity, just having different perspectives is really important. So when I brought my children up, I decided that I would never stop them speaking, right? And Kobi, I learned so much from my daughter, who is very I don't know if you believe in these things, but she's like a Libra. So, she always sees both sides of the, the equation. So she would always challenge me if I made a crass statement or something. So rather than default to what my parents did, which was, oh, stop it, don't know your place, right? I would think, yeah, you're right, Shusha. I don't quite care for the way you articulated that. You could do with learning how to be more respectful, but actually your message is right. And I found out that when I gave my daughter that permission, that platform, not permission, but platform to talk to me and to influence me, there was a mutual respect. And by the way, we both learned.
Yeah.
Great outcome. So then that, when you see that and you see it in action and you realize, even a child, sometimes we think children don't have wisdom. Of course they do. They've got huge wisdom. And so there's a diversity dimension that people don't always think about, that you can actually learn your best lessons from your children, but you can. Now, if you can learn from your children, which is a diversity dimension we throw aside and don't even think about, think of all the other diversity dimensions, right? And so that's what's happened. It's like, I guess when I realized that if I could just switch up the way I was and not do what my parents did to my children, and I'm learning so much, then I need to challenge all the norms, the accepted norms, because God knows what you're going to learn from everywhere else. So I've just been really passionate about it from that point. But I didn't realize, to be honest, that I was even a diversity champion. I just thought that was being a rebel, personally, right? But thank goodness, if you rebel against stuff that is inherently unfair, but you learn how to do it, because that was the mistake I made in the Caribbean when I landed, and I basically ran roughshod over people. I didn't respect where they were coming from. Yes, you can challenge accepted norms, but learn how to take people along with you. That was the lesson I really had to learn, because then, yes, people feel respected, and they're more likely to listen to you if you take care of them. So you're hard on whatever the issues are, but you look after the people, and it's a good way to, to do that. And, sometimes when people are not catering for diversity, they're not looking after you. And that's when I get cross, right? And it's like, no, that's not okay.
The rebel in Lorraine. Well, we have a question for Michael of Mikael. I was just put, if you have no experience in a sector you're passionate about, how can you get past the initial screening process to get a chance to show that fire in an interview setting? I'll take this, Lorraine, because this is my field. Michael, the way that I will answer this question is that there are always a few steps that you can take, right? So if you're very interested in a particular sector and you don't have experience in, first of all, get in contact with the recruiter. Tell them why you are interested in that field. Talk to people who may be in that field, who may be part of your network, so that they can share a little bit more insights, with you. And once you get that opportunity, because sometimes it just happens once, you need to be ready. That's what I've told a lot of people who have come across who are looking to make a change in a different sector. And I also shared this with them. Try to think about your transferable skills and how can you articulate that, right? Because it's very difficult to articulate something that is not very close to you yet, or you're trying to figure out how that fits into a different sector. So that's how I would answer the question. I don't know if you want to add anything, Lorraine.
Yeah, I would definitely say the transferable skills piece, but sometimes you need somebody to help you understand what the transferable skill is in the first place, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, depending on what the sector is, if you can volunteer in a sector to just do some voluntary work in that space to get to understand or get some exposure to it, then that might be a great way to not only get some relevant experience, but also make some contacts for yourself,
How do you call it? We have a question from Douglas, our Brazilian friend. I'm going to call him our Brazilian friend.
Douglas.
Yes.
Yes.
He's asking the question, how do you balance your gut feeling and intuition versus data or facts? I don't know if you want to take this, Lorraine.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because we also know that sometimes our gut feeling is wrong because we might be unconsciously biased, right? So in a way, you have to trust your gut, but then you have to, I'll tell you what I do, all right? I go with my gut, but then before I actually do anything, I rationalize it. I think, okay, why did I think that way? What made me think that way? And I try and attach some objective fact, because if you just go with your gut and you're not able to attach some kind of rational thinking to it, you're not transparent in your decision making, right? And you have to be transparent in your decision making in order to be fair to people, right? But if your gut, if you go with your gut first, then trust your gut if that's what but then put yourself through the discipline of the rationalization. Now, if you go with thinking first, then you've got to do the other thing as well and think about, well, how does this person make me feel as well? So you go with whatever is natural to you first, but give yourself the opportunity to at least think, to think if you're going with the gut first, or to feel if you're going with the mind first, you know.
Okay. And what I'll also add to that is, it depends a little bit on the situation from perspective is, sometimes your audience are much more fact-based and they don't care about feelings. So, right, then you need to make sure that you have some facts to be able to persuade them. I mean, in a corporate settings, it's all about influential skills. How do you get people on board a project or initiative that you are running behind? And yes, because I'm passionate about it, but sometimes you need to maybe show your return of investment. And that could be something that is fact-based. If we do this, we will save 50K. I'm just saying something out loud. So I think it really depends on sometimes on the situation. But yeah, go with your gut feel, but also try and see if you can support it with some facts.
But can I come back to you on that one, actually,
Yes.
Kobi? Because what I found out, because I'm at the head of region in Fiserv, I'm actually at their leadership table, which is a really interesting thing, right? So yes, I head up corporate citizenship, and in my remit, if you like, is diversity and inclusion. But in order to make sure that this is not invested solely in somebody and therefore a tick box exercise, my head of region has invited me to their senior leadership table. So every morning I attend the senior leadership meeting. And the reason I'm there is to challenge this very much fact-based, metrics-driven type of thinking, right? Because unfortunately, organizations sometimes make decisions based on, well, that's going to be good for our market share. That's going to be good for our share price. That's going to be good for whatever. And it's like, and because they get so much into the facts and the figures, they forget that who's going to deliver all of this? It's actually people. And so if you just drive through with numbers, leading the way, and you ride roughshod over people, you're not going to get anything, because you're going to make that same mistake that I did. So you've got to, so I'm there to challenge, in what way are we going to make sure that what we're doing, it basically excites hearts and minds, because when hearts and minds are on board, then people go above and beyond because they believe in and they care about what they're doing. So if you can really attach to what's important to people and does engage their hearts and minds, then actually you will deliver, by the way, your facts and figures and your numbers and all the rest of it. But you're doing it for the right reasons, rather than, we want to grow our market share, so let's diversify. Let's diversify because it's the right thing to do. And by the way, that helps us grow our market share. So I'm there to challenge and to help people think that way. Right. And I do think that there is a place, yes, for us to challenge a facts and figures based a mentality on its own, because there's too much of that at senior leadership tables. Honestly, there really is.
Well, I think it's great that Pfizer has you, being part of those conversations, because, if you're not part of that, then, potentially that could be missing as part of making a decision when it comes to the company. So that's a great point. I wanted to touch base on something you mentioned, roughly 10 minutes ago, about, the foundation that you co-founded, Sporting Equals, which is also something very close to your and dear to your heart. Can you share with our audience how that came about and why, that whole, let's say, why it was founded?
Yes, sure. There was no thought behind it at all. It was a pure accident. I mean, seriously, it really was a pure accident. What happened is I started football refereeing, which is another story altogether, right? And because I happen to be female from an ethnic minority background and can string two words together, the Football Association for the UK decided, oh, she's a great role model. Let's invite her to a some kind of conference, right, up in the north of the country. So I went there and was on a panel and was interviewed by Mark Bright, who's an up-and-coming a Premier League footballer at the time, right? The Premier League didn't exist then, but it was the top-level football. So he's asking me loads of questions about why I got into refereeing and all the rest of it. And this was in Bradford, which is an Asian, stronghold, if you like, up in the north of the country. And, somebody asked me, Mark asked me, have you ever experienced racism as a referee? And I said, no, actually, but I have experienced sexism, weirdly enough. And they went, oh, really? So I said, how did that happen? And I said, well, it's when I was doing an Asian football game. Basically, I refereeing the men's game. And so I was refereeing an Asian side, male side, and they didn't take kindly to being, refereed by me, especially when I had to send two of their players off, right, during the game. So you can imagine, well, one of them was frothing at the mouth. The manager was fuming, and it was like, how dare she? And, and it wasn't very good. It was not pretty. I still did my job, right, and did. And there was stunned silence because everyone in the audience was basically, well, a lot of them were male Asians. Right? So there's me saying the most controversial thing because I was answering the question. In the audience was somebody who basically was heading up a project called Sporting Equals, right? And her name was Novlet Rene. She happened to be married to the one black referee that we had in the United Kingdom at the time. Anyway, so Novlet caught me afterwards and said, I loved what you did. It was very courageous. Can you come on and help with our project? And basically, cut a long story short, I formed an advisory group with her. And what happened is little by little, people dropped away. And we ended up getting because we loved what Novak was trying to do, which was to improve or eradicate racism in sport. We pitched for some project, and we landed a vast sum of money at the time, 1.1 million pounds, to actually start to stand up grassroots organizations in the country. And what happened then is the Ministry of the Treasury decided to say, well, you're too small a project. We'll take, the Commission for Racial Equality, said, we'll take care of that project for you. We'll administer it. So myself and 2 other women, Black women, right, decided, no way, Jose, now you're interested. We're not having that. We're going to run this, but we'll turn ourselves into a limited company. So we did that. We had to fight to do it. We did it. And then we stood up a charity. And then we started growing. And that's how we started Sporting Equals. Started off as a project, and it became a charity with a cause. And where before it was to eradicate racial discrimination in sport, we changed it into promoting race equality across grassroots participation in the boardroom, leadership, etc. And now I want to change it into championing as opposed to promoting, much more active championing diversity. So that's how it started. 3 women refusing to be bullied, if you will, by an organization, and we just stood up a charity.
Wow. And if you look at today, looking back, Sporting Equals, if you can name 1 or 2 key things you were proud of in terms of what you've accomplished, what would that be?
Wow. Okay. 2 or 3 things I'm proud of for Sporting Equals. Oh, gosh. I guess appointing Aaron, really.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, the CEO, that is one, definitely. And now, let's say we are courted by top athletes, right, to join our board. So we have a Paralympian, we have an Olympic champion on the board, we have judo Olympic medalist as well on the board. We've got people from all walks of, we've just grown our board to about 8 or 9 people. We've worked remotely, and even when charities are, going under, so to speak, we're going from strength to strength. We started off with only working with 1 or 2 national governing bodies of sport. We've basically got a whole range now. So it's the growth of the charity and the way it's fired people's imaginations, and they just literally just want to grow it. And I'm just sitting back and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Just seeing this movement, this, lots and lots of people, lots of projects, and lots of energy, coming. I mean, we have like a sports awards, and the likes of Lewis Hamilton. Lots of people come from all walks of life. The last time we had an awards dinner, people were in the room that came that were the top level athletes, but grassroots, unsung heroes, and everyone on the same level playing field. Didn't matter whether you were an elite athlete or a community sports hall, they were there for the awards, and they all got different awards. Everybody, there was no distinction between who's elite and who's not. So I'm really proud of that, actually. It's called the BEDSAs, British Ethnic Diversity Sports Awards.
Wow.
The BEDSAs, yeah.
Well, kudos to you and let's say your co-founders for making it happen. If you could step in my shoes.
Yes.
Is there any question that you think that I should have asked you?
Gosh, I don't really know the answer to that one, Kobi.
No?
What question that you should have asked me? Yeah, maybe about men.
About?
And sport. Okay. How do you break into a male-dominated sport, for example?
Okay.
Maybe that question, because I must admit, I've been refereeing since 1998. Right, I'm the longest-serving female referee in the United Kingdom. Female referee. I'm still active when we're allowed to, but when I broke into refereeing, it was awful. It was completely dominated by men who told me what to think, what to say, and how to be. Now that doesn't work with me, right? Okay.
I've learned over the last 45 minutes that's not the case. Yes.
I'm also 5'0". Right. So that was really interesting. You're going on to a football pitch. You're going to start, refereeing guys, and you're 5'0". You basically fit under their armpits, right? They don't see you and they don't know where you are, which is great in some ways, right? But what I found was a lot of men would be telling me what to do and how to be. And what they didn't realize is I'm not 6 foot tall. I don't have the same angles as you. I can't bellow at people and tell them to get on with it or whatever, because number one, I don't have a big voice. That's not how I influence. And by the way, if I do stand in certain positions and someone stands in front of me, I see nothing at all, right? So the angles that I have to take up are completely different. So one of the things I would say to anybody trying to break into a sport, for example, and it's male dominated, is take on the role, and this is why I call myself a reluctant pioneer, right? Take on the role of educator. So you've got to learn to educate people. So I'll give you an example. There was one time when I was going through training and somebody was teaching us how to send somebody off. What should you do, right? And so he picked on me. He's 6 foot tall, by the way. And he said, oh, this is a potentially intimidating situation. And Lorraine, I can understand why it'd be very intimidating for you. So I thought, really? And I thought, I'll tell you what, this is my own self-talk. I'll let you finish what you have to say, right? Okay, so he said, yeah, it'd be very intimidating because it's explosive and, people might be, losing their tempers and all the rest of it. So when he finished with his advice, I said, excuse me, I just got a question, right? Or I've got a comment. And he said, yes, of course, pat on the head figuratively. Yeah. So I said, I can understand why you might think that sending somebody off might be, an intimidating occurrence, I said, because, as you've said, I'm only little and I'm female and all the rest of it. But I said, but, for you, I could understand why it might be intimidating to send off someone who's 6'5", I said, because they're actually taller than you. But in my case, everybody's taller than me. So actually, I'm not at all intimidated because it's normal, right? Wow. Everyone's taller than me. And honestly, all my male colleagues were actually laughing. And I thought, so yes, I had to teach him. Right? That no, just because you see things through one lens doesn't mean I see it, and don't inflict your fears on me. And so I would say, if you know what value you bring and that your perspective is different, by all means, allow other people to have their perspectives, but educate them, even if it means them being a little bit uncomfortable sometimes about what that means. Do it, because it's helpful for the people that come behind you as well.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for those insights. Lorraine, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
I always talk about, decisions around your career are made when you're not in the room. Okay.
Yes.
When it comes to promotions, things of that nature. What would you say to that? I mean, you are a senior exec, work for a lot of different companies. Obviously, you're part of what they call within HR, the collaboration session, right?
Yes.
What would you say to that?
That decisions about you are made outside the room when you're not in the room?
Yeah, when you're not, decisions around your career are made when you're not in the room.
I would agree with that totally. They are. But you do influence it. You do impact it, right? Why? Because of the way you conduct yourself and being your authentic self. So if you can actually spend some time really understanding what you're passionate about, really understanding what you're good at, and then finding the resources to help you get there, you will leave a lasting impact on people. To be honest, that's how I got my opportunity, right? What happened is I volunteered to work on some D&I initiatives in FISERV, right? That's what I did. That's all I did because I cared about them and because I thought, oh my gosh, this company is getting interested in D&I. That's what I've been trying to do outside the company. And when I did that, unknown to me, it made an impact on the head of the region, who then went to my boss and said, hey, I'm really impressed with what, she's doing. So do you think she would be interested in this role? And my boss actually said, well, yeah, but can she keep her old role as well? But that's what happened. That is exactly what happened. And so when my boss said to me, oh, by the way, John came and talked to me about you, I said, oh my gosh, I'm impressed. And she said, funny, that's what he said about you. So just be your authentic self, be very clear about the things that you care about, you're passionate about. the things that you know that you do well, that you've heard from people you do well, and then try and find some resources to help get you in that place. And when you have clarity about all those three, those decisions, they become a no-brainer for those people that spot you, right?
Yeah.
And because you're being authentic and you're intrinsically motivated and you're leveraging your strengths anyway, you will be spotted. Absolutely, you will be, yeah.
And I also use the word of being a good hang, right? So, in a corporate environment, nowadays everybody's working from home. However,
Yes.
When we were in the office, I think it's very important to, show up with your best self. Obviously, in a working space, you are collaborating with a lot of people. You need to make sure that you share the right energy. It's good. It's good to sometimes to moan a few times, but generally speaking, you need to bring your best self. All right.
Of course.
You also know that things happen in the workspace that you need to share your frustration or have somebody listen to you. But generally speaking, I like to engage with people who are, like you mentioned, authentic themselves, but also are good people to be around. All right. You have
Yes.
to work hours a day. So I always share that with people as well. What would you say to that?
Totally. It's what I said to you. I said straight away, I'm going to do something that I'm passionate about. I'm going to be with people that I like to be with, and I've got to feel like I'm adding value, right? And if you are your authentic self, then yeah, of course you're going to bring all your passion to it. It's going to be really easy to be your best self, actually, because you're doing something you love. I thoroughly enjoy my job. I'm overworked. Lots of things happen, and my days are very long. But I don't care because it's the hearts and minds thing. You bring the hearts and minds, which takes you over and above what you would normally do if you were in a humdrum job that you're not really emotionally attached to. You spend that much time at work, get emotionally attached to your work, seriously, and then you'll enjoy it.
Well, I don't know if we have any questions, so I'll start my wrap up. If any questions come, we'll try and answer that. But I hope you enjoyed, the first episode of Talent Bites. It was a pleasure. I hear your voice frequently, but it was a pleasure today.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your insights and your story and your journey with us. We wish you obviously all the best in your the impact that you're making on and off, let's say, in a corporate environment. For the people who want to check out Sporting Equals, please go and check it out. Is there any way that people could connect with you in terms of through LinkedIn, for example?
Yes, absolutely. Through LinkedIn. Yes, absolutely. That's the best way.
That's the best way. And Lorraine is working for Fiserv. You never know if Fiserv is looking for people to join their team. But also please do check them out as well. Okay. So thank you everybody who joined. Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you very much, Esade Careers, for providing the opportunity for the Black in Business and Alliance Club and making this happen. To the next time, have a good evening.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.